think I've showed this before, but if you've ever got a fridge, or well, actually a freezer more than anything, and particularly if it's an upright, and you forget to shut the door properly, or someone forgets to shut the door properly, and then you ruin everything that's inside. You've either got to cook it really quickly or throw it out, one or the other. My tip, stop that. You know these little door alarms you can get in pound shops? Can't make that mistake. Yeah, it does make a noise when it opens, but it does save the freezer contents. Yes, welcome to Ralph's house. Now, for once, I'm at work, and I'm not going to tell you where I work, but basically, I'm on a maintenance team, and a large part of what I do actually is painting, which I don't mind. It's therapeutic, isn't it? But what I was going to talk to you about was paints and brands of paint. Now, I've gone into B&Q and bought paint. Well, I'm not singling them out. It's the same for any of those big outlets, and they do their own brands. And they're great. The price is competitive, isn't it? The only thing is you need about 3 or 4 coats, especially if it's a dark colour that you're painting on walls, like a sage green, something like that. You're going to need at least 4 coats. Trust me, it'll look patchy if you don't. So the question is it worth, and in this case, and this is a crown paint, is it worth forking out for a crown paint, or Dulux if you like, the top brands, compared to a cheap DIY store brand? I would say yes, and I'll tell you for what. I know they cost a lot, but the point is a lot of these paints are scrubbable, so that paint is going to look good for a long time, good 10 years, trust me it will. And you don't need as many coats. The most of this I ever have to put on is 2 coats, sometimes just the 1. So there's a bit of advice on paint. And also use a really good quality brush. That way you'll cut in nicely along edges. At least for the cutting in. You can use cheaper brushes, but just watch it with the cheaper ones because the bristles will fall out. Just thought I'd mention that. Oh, got paint on my hands, look at that.
Well, it's 10 to 2 in the morning. I'm sat in bed studying the Foundation Licence Manual with my knees up. Do you know, if I had a woman in my life, I don't think she'd be putting up with this. Yeah, I've got to... I don't know why I'm doing this. But I'm going to apply for my ham licence and get my call sign. I think really more for me late father, because I think, you know, I think he'd be really pleased I'd gone for that. I think it was something he'd like to have done, if he could have done it. For whatever reason he didn't. I suppose really because ham receivers are so expensive, you know. The average is £1,000, you know, for a half decent one. And, lucky enough I've got one that I can get started with. But you do have 3 parts to study. This is the foundation one. I've just been looking through it, and most of it I'm okay with. You know, I am going to have to read up. Fortunately, you know, I've started working. Actually, I've got something better than that. Yeah, I've been working on old radios for a little while, mainly so that they don't end up in landfill. But what you find is when you restore these vintage radios is they've only got medium wave and long wave, and there's almost nothing on either of them. And it concerns me a little bit, really, because what seems to be happening in the world is as internet speeds increase, they put more and more technology through the internet, including radio and TV, streaming TV. Well, this is all very well, isn't it? But it reminds me of, you know, when you did maths at school, well, certainly when I did it in the 70s, calculators were frowned upon. And I can kind of see why, because, you know, to be able to do some sort of maths in your head, and you're unable to do it without a calculator, you know, if the PP3 battery in the calculator's gone, well, we can't do it, you know. And in the same way, I think this is happening with the internet, that, you know, radio, apart from FM, and that's getting thinner by the year, shortwave is certainly big, empty, vast spaces of nothing on a lot of frequencies. And this is all right until they pull the plug on the internet, and then how will you find out anything? You know, has anybody ever thought about that? And that's, I suppose, why I've got into shortwave, because, you know, well, it's always going to be there, isn't it? I mean, I've got portable receivers that run on batteries, so, you know, should we face Armageddon, you know, and just about survive it, and everybody says, oh, I don't know what's going on, they've turned off the internet, they'll be all round mine, won't they? So anyway, yes, so that's why at, well, now 5 to 2, I'm studying the foundation license manual, and we'll see how we get on over the next year. I can't imagine me doing this in 12 months. Apparently some people sit all three. I think it's a multiple choice. Is it 27 questions, something like that? I don't know if that's for all of them or not. I presume it is. But anyway, I shall work my way through this one, and when I feel that I've mastered the foundation license manual, I shall work on to the others. But I'm certainly not going to follow suit with a lot of radio hams who seem to be very anarchy in a lot of respects, you know. I don't want to sit there all night trying to make contact with as many people as I can, scribbling them down on a bit of paper. It just reminds me of train spotters. I don't want to do that. But yeah, it'll be interesting talking to other people in the UK, won't it? And certainly beats CB for range. So I don't know what you do. Well, I can imagine what you do at 5 to 2 in the morning. I don't want to know. Don't tell me. But this is what I've got to do. Now, those that know me very well, forget what you're looking at. I've worked in radio for, on and off, for 36 years as a presenter, by the way. It's a bit of a giveaway, isn't it, really? Someone said to me recently, they said, you've got very good radio voice, you know. I said, well, yeah, that's because that's what I do part-time. And I present a show. It's not chart stuff, it's obscure, and, well, I do an hour, I suppose, and put together a playlist of music that I think people would possibly never have heard. And it tends to be progressive, but I've been doing that 36 years, and I also taught radio production for, I think, 4 years, maybe 5 years, in Colchester, and radio journalism. That was the other thing I taught, but mostly radio production and how shows are put together and how the industry works, and, you know, the difference between AM and FM. And my past students will remember my classes rather well. I was a very unorthodox teacher, but I did get them through the exam, and that's what counted. Yeah, so that's probably where my interest in radio emanates from. I'm now 63. Hard to believe that I was in my 20s when I first went behind the mic, and I was a real amateur then. Now I'm a bit more relaxed in it, and when I've got to put an hour's show together, during the week I collect my playlist of tracks, and then I think, right, let's get that show done, and I don't really think about it before I do it. And it's on River Gibbs FM. You can get it through the internet, by the way. 9 p.m. Sunday nights, you'll hear me. And halfway through the show, we get an interruption from Mavis, the tea lady, who, unbelievably, most people don't realise, Mavis is me.
But she comes from Sneddick, and she talks like that.
So, yeah, so there's all that to look forward to. But I just thought I'd mention that because a couple of people have said, what's the connection with radio? And that's what it is. And yes, I do have a radio voice, and I suppose that's because I've heard my voice through headphones for extensive periods of time, and you start to realise that your voice needs to rise and fall in pitch, otherwise it becomes exceedingly dull. Anyway, there you go. That's that's where I started in radio. Golfing Saturday again. I've already done golfing Friday. Easy on that, but not too easy. Lovely. Yeah, go on. Down the hole. One of the reasons I got this transceiver so cheap is because it had sustained an awful lot of damage on this corner. Words fail me in a way, because it's not just the knobs that are broken off, the shafts are broken off. That took a real wallop. Lucky the rest of it is okay, but not the cheapest thing in the world to fix, particularly when you consider that these knobs are unavailable now, and there are stacked ones, you know, one on the outside, one on the inside. They're not available anymore, so other than second hand. But what I did manage to do, at reasonable expense, I thought, was manage to buy a second-hand unit where the shafts aren't damaged. So I'm going to replace, rather than replace this whole module, it seems like an awful lot of work. There's too many wires on it. I thought what I'll do is I'll desolder the controls. There's 9 on that one, 6 on that one. Swap those over and then bolt everything back up together. That would be those two, that one and that one. That one's fine, that one's damaged, but I've also got the board for that one as well, so it's just a case, well, I say just a case of desoldering. It's a lot of work for Sunday morning, but I'm not going to bore you with that. I can't say that was a fun job. It was not. I pity anybody who's got to do this on one of these. They were not good. Look, snapped off. Anyway, all replaced now. As I say, I think you'd struggle to find new ones of the right values, you know, because they're two potentiometers stacked together on that one, and that one. That's a single. That probably wouldn't be quite so bad. Anyway, they're all in, and I've just got to put this damn thing back together again and then give it a test. Interestingly, the dimmer switch, which didn't work when I got it, now works. So I think that when it took the bump, it probably moved the front case slightly. Anyway, I've re-screwed it. Nothing's broken on it or cracked. And everything lines up now. Right, let's put it back together. Not often you see outside Ralph's house front door. A fair bit I need to do to this porch. Least of my worries. Bought some geraniums and some pinks this week. I like pinks because they smell of clothes, and I will pop them up at some point today, but that's not why I'm here. I've got post. That, I think, is coax cable, because I don't seem to have enough, because I'm a bit of a shortwave listener, and but that box I have been waiting for a month, and it's come from AliExpress, and I'm going to show you later what's in it. You know, it's a strange thing about this front garden. My sister said this. She said, you're very lucky you inherited a well-established garden. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, it's quite stunning, some of the flowers. Look at those. And I remember somebody who will remain nameless who said, it needs opening up, it's too cluttered. Well, to hell with that. It's got some beautiful flowers in this garden, and it isn't really until the spring and summer that you see it. Then it also gives you a bit of privacy on your front room window. Yeah, dusk, best time of day. And do you know, foxgloves, I've never been able to grow them myself. but they grow in this garden almost rampantly. It's like Mr. McGregor's garden. Parked outside a well-known supermarket, but I just noticed there's another Honda Civic over there, but I don't think I'd want a registration number like B-Job Daily. I'm at work and coming to do some painting. No. My comrade in arms on maintenance isn't in, so I've got to put a new kettle in a room, and also I've got to fix a shower head. Well, that's Tuesdays for you. You see that gravel? It's not gravel. It's sort of bonded in with some kind of resin. The first time I've ever seen that. How odd. Well, I said I'd show you what's in that parcel. Does that give you a clue? I'm going to plug this in and then you can have a look for yourself. This is what came in that box, that parcel, you know, earlier on in the video. What I did do in preparation for it, I got myself this box to store it all in. I think it was about 16 quid. You know, sort of like a photographic one when you pull out the squares to get the shapes you want. Works perfectly. There's my mic. I've got a portable twig if I ever need. Not really much use. Although, amazingly, I had that aerial plugged into it and I was getting Italian hams on it. But anyway, these, I say, are about 400 or 500 quid new. Well, second hand. I don't know what they would have been new. Ham rigs on the whole nowadays, you know, you're talking thousands of pounds. But what's changed in radio, and I've noticed this when I've talked to old hams, they're a bit dismissive of these. I suppose because they've got this passion for these. But it's got to be said, everything that this does, and it's got a lot of switches and buttons and bells and whistles, which I've got quite familiar with now. I don't exactly understand how they all work, but I know how to get a good signal on it now. But everything on that, you can get on that. And you think, well, there's not so many buttons, Ralph. No. But it's like when you go into the menus, it just goes on and on and on and on. It's unbelievable. And some of these buttons and switches, they're not only just, well, they're not volume controls, they're clicky. They're encoders. And you've also got, you can press them in and you get other functions. Filtering. You can go from upper sideband, lower sideband, AM, all these different things. All of it on this set. This was £318 posted to my door, brand new. Which is best? I couldn't say one was better than the other. What I would say is this is really good in terms of portability, and it runs on 12 volt, and probably the best money I've spent this year. Anyway, that was what was in the box, and I don't want to bore you on ham radios because it is a little anarchy, isn't it? Actually, I listen to people on here. This is what intimidates me a little bit, some of the, particularly the Italians, they run massive aerials and massive power, and they'll pop up and say, well, I'm picking you up here at whatever strength and see you soon. Now that kind of conversation really doesn't do anything for me. But like I say, I was talking to a local ham and he said, oh yeah, he said, well, the Brits aren't like that, it's only the Italians. He said there's quite a few that'll just sit there and chat, and I thought, yeah, fine, and that's what I'm into. I don't mind discussing a little bit about what the equipment I'm running, but I don't want to get, you know, anally retentive, shall we put it that way. So that's it. That's what I bought. That's what's in the box. I also bought something else, which is hovering around here. I'm trying not to show the address. It's a box of parts, and it is a antenna tuner, automatic antenna tuner. So no matter what you got on the end of it, as long as you plug it into this box when I built it up, it will automatically tune the aerial. I do have a mic for this. I also have a mic for that one.
but I won't plug them in and I won't key up because I don't have a ham license. Stupid thing to do if you're ever thinking of doing that. And on the whole, ham operators will only sell ham rigs to people with a call sign that have passed their exam, which I'm in the middle of doing. So that was that. That's enough of radio for this week.
That's what I really wanted to fuel before, but don't matter, we should be able to get it going. It was running fine when it went.
We're out in the garden today, and although I quite like these shrubs, they've got a bit big. And this patch seems to get the sun most of the day. Well, it would do if there weren't all these shrubs here. So my dad's come over with his chainsaw. Dad number 2. But far more practical. Anyways, just to point out, he has got his protective trousers on and headphones, and it gets noisy, as you know, with chainsaws. But hopefully we'll get rid of all of it. There's some buddleia there which wants to go. There's a giant japonica, that's all I know of the name of that. Don't know what this is, but it was pruned back a year or so ago, but it's shot up again. That's coming out. This is a variegated laurel, possibly. Don't know, that's all got to go. The only thing that will be left will be the thornless blackberry at the end. And there's a load of crap under here that I can't get to until we start cutting all this. Oh, here we go. Come out several hours later, and because it's a nice warm summer evening, which it is, there's some barbecue stroke party with lots of people there by the sound of the crowd. Anyway, cleared everything now up until the, remember I called it the garage stroke shed. The roots now have been treated with glyphosate, painted on neat with a paintbrush, drilled into the stumps. If I show you. Put this across because I've got to think of wildlife, and I'd hate for a bird to land on that with glyphosate on it. But that's what you do. Drill into it, paint it with glyphosate, run plenty into the holes, keep a plastic bag on it. That should die off. I've got to wait for all this lot to dry out and die down a bit, and then during the week I shall come out and cut it up into smaller bits and put it into me brown bins. To be honest, it's going to take a while to clear this, but it's long overdue. And it also means this fence, which is, I don't know if I can show you, woodworm, rotten as a pear. But I can soon lose that. Actually, some of it may be good wood, but we'll see. But basically, I'm going to put all of this through the bonfire in the autumn. Wouldn't do it this time of year. Wouldn't be fair on my neighbours, would it? So that's where we're at. As I say, I've got a lot of stuff to clear. These, which, I mean, those bushes had some thick stems on them, I can tell you. But what I thought I'd do is I'll pile just a few of these up in the corner in the garden, and be a nice little haven for small creatures, won't it? Insects, that sort of stuff. I'm all for encouraging that. I'm not a snail and slug chaser, although if I'm going to grow veggies on there, I shall have to probably put in a bit of a deterrent to stop them munching on it. So what am I going to grow? Well, I've got a thornless blackberry here and what looks like a tree of some kind. Hazel, is it? I think. I shall have to poison the hazel because I don't want that there. But there is a thornless blackberry, and I want to encourage that because you do get some blackberries on it, and at least you don't get spiked by it. I've got a couple of gooseberry bushes which my stepdad says will be more than adequate. He said he had 3 and there's far more gooseberries than he can eat, so 2 gooseberry bushes, beans, peas. This is all for next year, but this is what this is about really, preparing this, replacing the fence while it's all clear, and generally bringing the garden back to what it should be. So that end, Conservatory got good plans for that. You see it's got a low wall there just below the window, can you see it? Well, actually it's there. That's coming out. I'm going to put a new piece of timber across there. I shall keep the roof because I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but what I'll do is get the lead flashing off it and probably either put new lead flashing on it, which is probably what I'll do, or put some mastic in it as well so it seals better and it doesn't leak. Or I'll take the glass out and actually just put a roof on it, but I want that open in there so that, you know, if it rains one day or whatever, I can sit under there and have my breakfast in the morning. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? So that end of the garden, which has got the pond, which is behind all these grasses, my dad must have planted these. They actually look good, but I think it wants sorting out a bit. So that little bit will be the remains of what was my secret garden. But this end is going to have to pay me back because the price of food being what it is, it really is worth buying seeds now. I'm told onions aren't worth growing because they're relatively cheap anyway throughout the year. Same with tomatoes, it's really not worth growing them. I have got some strawberries though, I bought some of those. So I will get some veg this year, not a lot, but next year, really go for it. So, big thanks to my stepdad for clearing this. A bit of a heartache really in a way because they were big shrubs and they were rather nice, but they just got too big, you know, and it's not just a case of pruning them. You were like dealing with trees. Oh, sounds like somebody's yodeling. such is my life here. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do with it, and that's why I've cleared it. So right, we shall go back indoors. In quite a few episodes of Rail's House, I've complained about these storm doors, which have been bodged a few times, and not by me, hasten to add, but over the years, you know. And they're wooden, yeah, hardwood they may be, but they're at the end of their life, and all the frame around there is all rotten. And I've been putting this job off, and what's difficult about it is it's not a square entrance, is it? It's got a curved top, and I've been told by a couple of guys, including some roofer friends of mine, that UPVC or even composite, whichever you're going to use, is not cheap, and particularly not now with the price of oil and petrol going up, because it's all part of the manufacturing process. So to replace these, I'd be looking at around 2,700, 2,500, somewhere around that mark, and that's only for the doors, that's not even fitting them. And with all the will in the world, I don't mind replacing a single one, that's fine, I'm fine with that. I've got all the packing pieces for that. I'm not going to be tackling these, so I have had to, this is the only, that's the second contractor I've had to get in. The first was for the central heating system, fair enough, and I've got a pretty good deal on that, I think. Did the whole house, including the boiler, for about 4,000, which I thought was pretty good. However, these, and I'm not entirely comfortable with it, you know what I mean, because it's all plastic and glass, glass, Midlands accent, and some degree of metal in it, but not a lot to it. 2,700, that's a lot of money anyway. I've contracted a fairly large company across the UK, I think they're the third largest, and it'll be about 10 to 14 weeks because before they can come. They'll take these out and they'll fit new ones that fit this exactly. At some point a surveyor will come around and measure it to the nearest millimetre so they know they get it right. And I did say if I was really pleased with them I will do a special rails house just about the doors, because I was impressed with the build quality. I'd not seen storm doors as well made as those were, and we managed to do a deal between us that I was reasonably happy with. It's still a lot of money, and I'm not going to say how much it was, unfortunately, because well, it's not going to be much use to you, is it? But what I will do is I'll cover the process of removing these, because for me, well, they're fine in summer and they're all dry at the moment, but come the wet weather the water leaks in at the bottom, which isn't good. You could never put a bit of carpet in here, which actually I'd quite like to do, and there seems no point in doing all the paintwork in here until these doors are done. The other thing, of course, is that these do nothing to keep the heat in, and whilst I love this door, it's a beautiful door, that's not double glazed either, especially with stained glass. So in the winter we were faced with a situation where just to go downstairs and make a cup of tea meant you had to put a bobble hat on and gloves and thick socks and an overcoat. You know, the whole works. It was really, really cold. So despite the cost, I think I need to get this done, because my gas bill will go through the roof, you know, if I don't do something about it. And granted, I'm not going to get this back in the first year, but I will over the years, and my son certainly will. He'll be glad that I did it. So yeah, the storm doors are getting changed. More about that in a future rails house. Also this week I bought 4 large solar panels. They are large, 135 watt, and I measured them out in the sun when they arrived. I think I've got a good deal on these, £60 each. You know, they're big panels. Anyway, put them out in the sun, put my test meter on it. That's the trusty one that I mentioned. I'm just reaching for it. The trusty one that I featured in an earlier video. That's the number of that meter. In fact, the guy who delivered these was so impressed with that meter, he took a picture of it. He said, "I love that." Well, yeah, they are good, because they don't care whether it's DC or AC you're measuring. You haven't got to switch anything, it does it automatically. I think anything up to 1000 volts. Can't go wrong anyway, can you? So, measured these, reasonable sun yesterday, 19 volt on every one. They're rated about 17 volts, so that would be right, allowing for a small drop. 19 volt, and anything up to 7.5 amps per panel. So 4 panels, we're looking at about 30 amps on a good day. So what my plan is, on the right hand side of my garden, I'll notice there's a patch that gets sun all day uninterrupted, well, till we get to night, and I think it'd be a good spot to do it and put them on the right hand side. And I know normally people put them on the roofs, but there are implications with that, not least for your house insurance and all the rest of it, and damage to your roof, or you find leaks or whatever. And there's no difference really between putting it on the ground and on the roof, other than that, you know, they're out your way, I guess. But for me, they'll be fine down the garden. And a friend of mine, Ermi, down in Kent, I think it is, she's got a few solar panels on the roof, and she runs a tumble dryer off it in the summer. It seems a good thing to do, doesn't it? But what I've got a watt meter that you can plug into a 13 amp socket, and anything you plug into that, it'll tell you what it's consuming, so I can then start totting up what I think I can run off the solar panels during the brighter months, and therefore bring my electric bill down a bit. So it seems a good investment. So 60, 120, £240 plus a bit of delivery on top. So I bought them. I could ill afford them, but I have to say I'm not going to get panels as good as these are for 60 quid each. So I thought, grab them while you can, get all 4. You know, you'd be lucky if you get one under 100 now. and I've seen little ones for 60 quid, so yeah, good deal. So all I've got to do is make up a timber frame in the garden for these to stand on, and with a bit of ingenuity I may be able to rotate them. We'll see. Anyway, that's my investment, and perhaps I won't get so much out of them this year. I'll get a little bit out of them this year, but next year they'll really start to pay back, hopefully. So there we are, solar panels at Ralph's house. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.